All right, this is episode 11.
You sure?
Yeah, that's episode 11, and that's more than 1/10 of 100. So we're climbing up there. Um, this is Lisa Marie,
This is Renee.
and with us today we have.
Oh, would you please introduce yourself and tell us yourself?
Yes.
Please introduce yourself.
Myself? I might just a second. I'll get my
Are
All
driver's
you
right.
license
sure?
out. It says Bobby Keogh on it.
Yeah.
Well, as well as I can read with these
So, what is it
eyes.
you do besides run? Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Oh my gosh. You name it. We do a lot of hiking, backpacking, a little bit of backpacking. We've done whitewater. We've done rock climbing. We've done a lot of traveling lately. And when we
All
were
right.
working, we were teachers. We had plenty of time for traveling. Um, Hobbies, collecting antiquarian books. I was a school teacher for 25 years, a scoutmaster for 34 years. That's how Diane and I met, was Boy Scouting for kids with disabilities. We have done a lot of just goofing off since in retirement. It just seems like we have very little time being home. I spent a year and a half, well, I tried to stay home for a year and a half while I put a portico or an entry on a synagogue in town. Close friends of mine are Jewish, so we built a pretty elaborate entry, and in fact just recently went up to Seattle to spend time with the sister-in-law, who is a really good seamstress, and she's making curtains to drape between a
Wow.
multiplicity of arches in this portico. So it was a pretty involved project, and I love a lot of construction, taught building trades, architecture, woodworking, and do that stuff just for fun. Um, Cut, split, haul firewood. We live in the mountains. Our well has been dry for about a year and a half, and I've hardly noticed because I keep my outhouse, and I've always kind of enjoyed minimalizing water use. So we catch enough roof water to use for most of our household needs, and we get filtered water from the local
All right.
machines in town to cook and drink. Live in a mountain village, maybe 40 people, about 14 miles east of Albuquerque, and spend a lot of time in the trails and
Wow. Age is
goofing
not
off,
something that
just
stops
doing all
people.
kinds of
Yeah.
crazy things.
I think that's awesome.
Yeah. I bet.
So
All
do we.
right. Let's get to. Exactly.
It's
Yeah.
Yeah.
amazing to have the time and the
Making the
wherewithal to
most
be
of your
able to do it.
retirement.
Yeah. I don't think he's retired. I don't.
But then, well,
No, he's not retired.
officially.
Officially.
When I first retired, I had this kind of letdown that I was gonna lose all of my skills and all of the stuff that I'd spent a lifetime learning to teach. And it turns out since retirement, I've had a lot less time than I did when I was working,
Yeah.
and my
Right
That's
skills
on.
are
good.
constantly getting challenged and built
Keeping
on.
those facilities going.
Yeah. Now I'm going to challenge your facilities on this.
Well,
So the
both
race
of
you have
them.
chosen, I'm going to do all the boring stuff with the time and the cost, and then Lisa Marie's going to take over and do all the fun stuff with how bad are the 8 stations and how terrible was the weather. So on this race, how much time did you? What was your finishing time?
Um, the purpose of the race was to see how far you could go in 60 hours.
60 hours. Okay, so we're going to put 60 hours down as your running time. And
Yes.
and how much travel time did you spend to get to and from this
Oh,
race?
it took me about 6, 7 hours to get there.
And 7 hours back, so 14.
No, one way.
One way. Yeah, so 14 in total, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. 80% of the time spent running, that's good. You
Yeah.
didn't waste time going there and come back, like some of us. All right. How much was the race fee?
It was a free entry.
Oh, that's a good one. I can tell you already, it doesn't matter what your travel costs are because you got a zero on that one. That's that's excellent. That's not bad at all. Okay, so what was your travel cost on this one?
About $150.
Okay,
Wow.
that's not so bad. That's actually quite cheap. You're in the cheaper end.
Yeah. This supposed to be an
That's the
early
kind of
one.
guy I am.
So, okay. And what about nutrition? Did you buy any nutrition for this race?
I actually did, and it's been a while, but I would guess that I spent in the neighborhood of $100 on nutrition.
Okay.
What'd you buy?
Mostly cases of drinks and bars, just a variety of protein bars, energy bars, that sort of thing. I don't believe back then I did a lot of electrolytes, so there would have been maybe a little bit of salt, salty snacks, and that sort of thing.
Were
Right.
you a vegan then?
I've been vegan for almost 50 years.
Okay, so
Okay.
that answers my question.
That's a yes.
Did you have a Snickers?
Did you spend any money on shoes?
Probably that's a good question. Your shoe thing, I give myself $20 to $40 per race, but I wear shoes down to the nubbins and then I shoe glue them and wear them some more. And I keep super worn. Last summer, my back was bad, so I had to run shoes that were totally fit to my feet. So I was wearing shoes that any intelligent runner would have thrown away
So I guess that's a
all,
zero.
all summer.
And did you buy any essentials, which is basically like anti-chafing or lip balm or anything that is not travel
No,
shoes?
Beard comb?
no,
No.
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 Okay. Well, that's good because of your free race entry, you got a zero score because your race entry would you spend your money traveling and not nutrition, so so that's the screen. So this is a timed race. So what was your mileage in those 60 hours?
I managed, let's see, probably in the neighborhood of 80 miles.
Okay. And what was your goal?
Um, that was totally unknown because I had no idea. I knew that the race involved a lot of elevation gain and loss on some trails, but mostly bushwhacking.
Okay.
So I had no idea what I was going to really do.
So the ballpark number, 50 miles, 60 miles.
Oh, I would have guessed maybe 65, 70.
Okay, we'll give it a 67.5. Okay. You reached a good part of your. You did better than you planned for.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and you got a return on investment on 0.45, which is not bad at all. It's better than what we just did. So, okay, and now I'm gonna let Lisa Marie interrogate you on all the fun stuff.
Aid stations. How are those aid stations?
Amazing because they had to backpack them in to
Wow.
get to. There was only a few of them, but then the biggest one was actually in a campground. So I'd have to rate the aid stations themselves right around an 8 or 9. Let's call it 9.
Okay.
Okay, that's
Did you have fun?
I never, ever have fun in these runs, excepting that hanging out with the people, and in this case, the views were spectacular. So I'd have to rate fun around a 7 or 8.
We'll give it an 8.
Yeah, because the look on your
The,
face.
the, the views
Yeah, the
have to,
views.
you can never go down with their views.
Yeah. How about trail markings? I'm afraid to ask about the trail markings. You said bushwhacking, so
There weren't any. You were on your own, map and compass.
Oh,
wow.
okay. Now that's
Wow.
interesting. That's a new one.
It gives me an idea what this race is,
Oh, really?
which if it is what I think it is, I'm
Okay.
going to be like, yes. Okay.
But
So what would you give those trail markings that in the map? Did it,
Well, it was a 10 because it was totally what was expected.
okay.
okay,
Nothing.
Nothing.
okay,
How about the weather?
The weather was, actually, the weather was a 9.
okay.
We
Really?
had some incredible thunder and lightning storms. We had the winds at one peak that we did, the winds were maybe 50 miles an hour, and I was wearing nylon shorts and a short sleeve 50/50 t-shirt that leaning into the wind, I had to keep sipping on my bladder because the water in the tube was turning to slush.
Uh,
Oh my God. Okay. So it's
So I
cold.
presume the temps were about 20 degrees that morning
and you were in,
with maybe 50-mile-an-hour winds. When
wow.
my feet start skidding, I figure that's about 50 miles.
Did your beard or anything get any ice in it?
Oh, yeah, solid. It was hard to open my mouth, which was a treat for anybody around me.
So you had snotsticles.
Oh, yeah, no, it was constant. It was solid ice.
Yeah, I've been there.
I haven't. So I take it there were no pacers.
No,
No.
Crew? Have a crew?
Any crew?
my crew got about a 1.
Oh,
Oh,
okay.
oh, I have to
There
hear
has to be a
this.
story behind that.
Yeah.
There is.
Let's hear it.
Oh, you want to hear it?
Oh
Oh,
yeah.
yeah.
Oh, well, this person had volunteered to crew me when he heard that I wanted to do it. And at the starting line, he was nowhere to be found. So I ended up giving my drinks and food to the race director. And at the first aid station, my crew didn't show up. And one of the RDs happened to be a friend, and he made me an incredible avocado sandwich that tided me over real nicely. The crew did show up at the second aid station. It would have been about midnight, and he had an RV that he was letting his people that he was crewing sleep in, and there wasn't room for us. So I just sat there. I was not allowed to go on because I knew nothing about the course. It was midnight. They didn't want me to get lost, but really I could have gone on. It was just a trail up to another peak, and then they could have just said, well, once you get to the peak, go, like northeast down the hill again and look for airplane parts on the hill. There was a crash on the hill, and it would have been fairly easy. And the peaks were 14ers, so it was easy enough to see the next one.
That's a new
Wow.
one.
But they didn't want me to go on my own, so I had to sit there for 3 hours while everybody took a nap, and then was able to go on. And he was sleeping the whole time I was there, so my crew didn't do too much for me. That was the only time I saw him in the 60 hours.
Wow.
Wow.
Yeah, he gets a
Okay.
one.
That's a new
Yeah.
one. Just go to the
You should
peak and
have a
follow the
0.
crash.
Wow. I'm sorry that happened to you.
Well, it made it more of an adventure, didn't it?
Yeah,
That's true.
because you had to figure it out. Yeah.
Yep.
Did you have any blisters or chafing or stomach issues or unknown bug bites or
I had torn an adductor tendon at Leadville 4 days before this one. So I was a little bit sore from that, but nothing else.
Okay, so nothing.
You are a badass. Just saying.
Okay.
Well,
Um,
I had to quit Leadville because I thought 4 days from now I've got a tough race. So I didn't, I've been hopping for 64 miles on a torn tendon and thought I'd probably better not push my luck if I wanted to do well 4 days later.
I have no idea what this is.
No, me neither. But it
Um,
sounds like fun.
it does. That sounds like what I want to do. Trail nap comfort. So you know how I rate this. Either you're falling or you have a nap on the trail, and equally they could be comfortable, uncomfortable.
Well, in 48 hours, you don't need a lot of sleep. So I just curled up in the sunshine right on the trail. And well, where there was, could have been a trail if I had one. And it was fine. I would rate that like a 6.
Okay,
So no falls at all.
None that I remember.
that's good.
How was your
They
mental
would
state?
have mentally. That's a good question because it certainly roller coastered on me. Overall, primarily because of the challenge and the scenery and the fact that I was in motion doing something a bit unusual, I would probably rate it about a 7,
Okay.
even though there's some huge down cycles.
Yeah.
Okay, how about hallucinations?
10 plus. Can I give it a 20?
Yes,
Okay, we can probably not.
I
We'll
want to
give it
hear
a
all
10.
about it. You know about hallucinations.
Well, you definitely, well, the second day was primarily hallucinations. Most often things like the rocks in the trail melting, tree roots melting. I had to keep moving because I was kind of ankle deep in the stones I was running over. And I knew there were hallucinations. I was fine with it. And I was actually enjoying them and enjoying the fact that they encouraged me. Because if I stopped, I would start sinking up to my waist. And so they just kept me motivated to keep moving. Um, but the second night, the sun was setting, and come up into a valley, and I was looking at two peaks and staring at my compass and my map. I could not determine which of the two peaks I was supposed to go to. And I finally gave it up and said, it's going to be dark and you're going to be on the wrong peak and you're going to get lost. And you've got 10 peaks. The point of the race was to get as many 14ers as you could. And, that's considering how badly you feel with your. I didn't know it was a torn tendon at the time. I thought it was a groin pull. And I think you've done fine. I started heading back, and lo and behold, the person I'd left in a sleeping bag that morning was coming up the trail. And I said, "Steve, I thought you were done." And he said, "So did I," until I took a nap, and I was fine. So, and I said, "Well, I don't know which of the two peaks to go to, so I'm bagging it." And he said, "Well, I do. So why don't you just come with me?" So I did have a pacer of sorts for a while, and we got to a valley just before the peak that we were supposed to be bagging. And he said, "You can either do a talus ascent here or a bouldering problem to the right." Well, I'd been on a talus ascent with Steve at 2 o'clock the morning before, and he was pretty whiny going up the talus to where I actually had to work away from him so I couldn't hear him crying. And when I did that, I ended up doing peaks in the wrong sequence. Steve had gotten hypothermia. This is where it was like maybe 20, 25 degrees in the high winds, and he was turning purple. And so I took all of my stocking caps, gloves, and jackets out of my pack and gave them to him because for some reason I didn't need them. And I did the peaks reverse, two peaks that we had to do at that summit. And I did them in reverse to his. He did it right. I did it wrong intentionally. And so at any rate, when he gave me a choice between talus and bouldering, I said, "What are you going to do?" And he said, "Talus." And I said, "Well, I've done enough talus on this. I think I'm going to do the bouldering again, just to avoid hearing him." But the bouldering wasn't obsidian, but it was a comparable dark, black, shiny rock in the Colorado Rockies that at one point I was on about a 3 inch ledge working my way up, oh, maybe a 20, 30 degree angle. And it seemed like I had good enough traction, but there were very few handholds. So it was just a matter of leaning into the stone and working my way up. And I got to a point where there was like a 24-inch crack where the main rock had broken too and separated. And I thought, well, I'm going to have to step across. And I saw one crack that I could get my fingertips into and a 3 inch ledge. And I thought, if you were not hallucinating, not exhausted, and feeling a lot better than you do right now, you could do this, but you'd better go back and do the talus. So I started working my way back down, and it was much more treacherous down climbing. And I looked about 12 to 15 feet behind me down. There was a lot of sharp, jagged rock. And I thought, well, if you fall, it's not going to be pleasant. Maybe I ought to try and make that step. So I worked my way back up. And here I am kind of contemplating how I'm going to do this move. And I hear the whirring of wings. And I feel body warmth surrounding me. And soft, round cheeks are touching mine. Now, this is a physical touch, it's not an hallucination. And there's little wings fluttering behind the cheek. And I see these little chubby hands holding on to me. I can't quite feel them, but there's just gentle pressure on my arms where these hands are. And I look down and there's two of these on my legs, and there's a couple behind me and one above me. And they're literally cherubs. And I can smell them. I can feel the warmth of their breath. I can feel the warmth of their bodies, and I can feel their cheeks on mine. And it's like, cool. And I just stepped across, worked my way up. They fluttered away. I could, vaguely out of my peripheral vision, see them fluttering away. And I got to the summit. I managed 11 summits.
Wow.
Wow. Okay. That's
And that's
impressive.
14ers?
Yeah,
That is not an easy feat.
No,
It's not.
no.
I've done one.
that took us a day. That took us a day
Yeah.
to get up and down.
Wow. That is awesome. That is wow.
It is.
Yeah,
It's the most amazing experience I've ever had in ultra running
I
Wow.
bet.
because it was
Oh,
physical. I could feel it.
yeah.
Right.
And now I get the thing with the views.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, I've had things kind of like that. Not like that, but, you know, maybe on a scale of like way further down. But I understand that. So, were you still in shorts at this time? Were you hypothermic or you never did get hypothermic?
I don't think I ever got out of shorts and t-shirt. Never hypothermic either.
Wow.
Wow.
What month was this?
Well, August with Leadville.
Ah.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Yeah.
It was almost the end of August.
Yeah. So you still had monsoonal stuff probably going on.
Oh,
That's
yeah.
the thunderstorms.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, the thunderstorms were phenomenal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I did have trash bags for that I used like a like a tent. I'd pull one over my legs and then the other one over my head, and I just hold enough opening to breathe while it got hammered. And then when it let up a bit, I'd get back to running.
Did you see any marmots?
Yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah.
lots.
I bet.
They are cute little things.
I was so mad I forgot to bring my camera to the summit. So I had all these marmots and they were having conversations with me and I can't document it because I forgot my phone and my camera.
Pixar, it didn't happen.
Yeah, I know.
Picas too. We had lots of picas.
Well, you
Yeah.
know that snakes don't go above 9,000 feet, so I know you didn't see any of that.
Well, we were certainly down around below 7,000 at
Wow.
times.
That's a lot of climbing. Can I ask how much climbing you actually did during this race?
Had I finished the 14th one, I'd have gotten 44,000 feet of vertical.
Holy smokes.
Were you sore?
The torn adductor was plenty sore.
Well, I mean, besides that, did you suffer a lot a couple of afterwards or
I can tell you what the next day of teaching was like. I managed to get home about 5 in the morning on Monday, got a quick nap, and went to work.
I'm
Sounds
sure
like
And
me.
this is, I had spent most of 4 of the last 8 days running mountain trails.
Wow, okay.
so you just took
I
a long
was exhausted.
what'd your students say?
It was the best day I've ever had teaching because I basically sat on my stool in front of the classroom and said, listen, guys, I am way too exhausted to teach, but I think I can do as well as most subs, so I came in anyway. And we ended up doing values clarification stuff. Why would you do this, Mr. Keogh? And students that I'd had for 2 and 3 years knew that I'd been running. They could tell every Monday when I come hobbling into class that I'd had a race. And so we just, did this values clarification. I mean, some people party and some people, eat chips and watch TV, and I choose to do different.
Yeah.
Right on. I wish I could have had you as a teacher.
It was the best day of teaching I ever did. I couldn't believe how well it went. The kids were just locked in, fascinated.
Oh, I would be too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're probably looking at you going, how did he do that?
Yeah.
Okay,
I
so
was asking myself the same question.
I would do the same. I'm sure your wife had some looks to give you. She probably just shook her head and went,
Well, she didn't even come the second time. She was at Leadville, but she was working. She was much more serious about her job than I was. She sent me up there alone to do stupid.
so how about that race versus the description? We all know RDs lie or they embellish or they
But leave out
de-embellish.
details.
They leave out little details and
I had no idea what the RDs were saying about it ever, except during the race, they would give me ideas on how to approach the next peak.
Wow,
wow.
okay. So you went literally
And they
blind.
were pretty right on. So I would, they'd have to be a 9 or 10.
Okay.
Okay. Good a nine.
Okay, so how about swag, buckles, or any kind of, was there any
Nothing.
nothing?
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 You didn't pay anything. What do you expect?
Well,
Yeah.
a t-shirt, a banana, like a marathon.
Yeah, I mean, come on. Should have gotten a bit. He got an avocado sandwich
Yeah, I did. That's true.
Okay, that's true. Yeah.
and a
Okay.
garbage bag.
No, I brought my own.
So, okay. Um, so your race score was 7.6, which is not
That
bad.
is
Out of
really
10.
good.
Out of 10. And
Wow.
your overall score compared with the return on investment is a 6.5.
Wow. That's good.
That's actually not bad at all. That's
Well, he's
let's
got a performance
I
score.
was just gonna see where he falls on the chart because yeah, he's up there in seventh position
Oh, wow.
out of 11. That's not bad.
Yeah. There might be a prize.
But we are not done.
I doubt it.
We still have to guess.
I cannot guess. It's after
I
Leadville. It wasn't the summit because that just started.
Does
But
this
it's a,
race even exist today?
yeah, does it exist?
No, that was the last official year. It is now a challenge.
Okay.
Right.
I do know about a challenge where you do all the peaks. I have heard about that. That's kind of an underground thing, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So
As a
what
race, it was underground.
was it by invite?
No, there were 15 entries allowed, and I had known ahead of time that only 12 people were actually going to show at the starting line. Nobody knew I was coming except for one of the runners that had told me about it. And I just showed up and asked the RD if I could do it. And he looked at me and said, "Who are you?" And I said, and then he wanted credentials. And I said, well, I was at Leadville 4 days ago and quit because I was having difficulty moving and wanted to save what I had left for this one. And then I gave him I think I had Old Dominion and Vermont and a few other hundreds that I'd run through them. And so they looked at each other and thought, this guy's really dumb enough to maybe do okay. So they let me in.
I don't know. I have no idea
I
what
have
this race
no
is.
idea what that race is.
Should I tell you?
Yeah, now you can
You
tell us
can tell
because
now.
this is the
It
first.
was it was the Nolan's 14.
Oh, I
Oh,
have heard of this. Yeah.
14 14ers,
Wow. And you had,
roughly 100 miles total,
wow. Okay, that's
depending on what course you take.
yeah.
But at one point, the first afternoon, I got tied up with a guy from Florida who had 3 websites on the race and the maps for the race and that. And he loved rock climbing. So we ended up 10, 11, 12 o'clock at night with a flashlight in my teeth, down climbing and cliffing out 3 times before he finally agreed to do a razor ridge. It wasn't even a razor ridge, just a ridge run to the bottom. Would have saved us like 4 hours if we'd just done it, which the race director had told me about it. And I'd told this guy about it. And he said, yeah, but this is quicker. It's less distance. The campground's right there below us. And so I followed him 3 times down a rock face until you couldn't see your next foothold. And it was pretty black abyss below.
Yeah.
wow.
Climb back up and try again.
Wow. So this isn't, you made your own trail, or were there trails that you like? I've
Once in a while, you'd be on a trail. We would call them citizens trails because mostly you're bushwhacking.
been,
Right.
okay. Wow.
What year was this?
Yeah.
2020, I think.
Wow, that's not that far.
Diana says no. What year was it?
Like 2015.
That would have been 10 years ago. No, I've been retired for 16 years.
Yeah, you were still working, so
It was at least 20, 22 years ago.
yeah, okay.
So about 2020, 2023 in there.
Oh, years ago.
Oh, 23 years ago.
Right. Oh,
Okay.
okay.
Yeah. No, I'd say it was, I'm guessing it was like between 2020 and 2022 in there. But it was the most amazing experience because of that experience on the rock.
You know, you're brave. I don't know that I could do something like that.
That's
I,
insane.
like I
I'm
said, I've
just
done
saying.
one.
I mean, I consider myself relatively crazy, but throwing yourself at something like that.
Well, the Italian run is pretty comparable. It's got 77,000 feet of vertical,
Oh,
and it's some of the most difficult trails I've ever been on,
is that the Swiss Peak?
including places where there's ropes pitoned into a rock and you're 11, 12 o'clock at night, you're trying to climb and you're looking down into nothing.
Wow.
Wow. Okay.
So, and that was just 3 years ago.
Wow. That is awesome.
That's
You are
cool.
Yeah,
awesome.
That's,
it was fun.
well,
It's all fun.
we can't put
It
this
is
one on our
fun.
list. We can't put this on our list.
I didn't say that we couldn't put it on our list. You know, I always listen to Bobby. If Bobby says you're ready to go and do something like this, then I know that we're ready to go. He says go run a 6 day. Okay, we'll go run a 6 day. So, you know, Bobby is responsible for us running 200s and looking
Yeah,
into the 6 days. And
he's an enabler.
yes, he is my,
Mostly because he makes it look so easy when we're out there.
yeah. So I am his biggest fan. I'm his wife's biggest fan, and
And he
he
taught
is an enabler to me.
and he taught me how to sleepwalk.
Oh, have you learned that technique?
Yeah. Yeah.
You can actually sleep run if it's a good trail.
Well, I haven't gotten that far. I'm still babying it, so I'm walking with
No,
my
like at across the years, you can run that one with half your body asleep.
yeah. Well, I'm still training myself to go faster than walking with my eyes closed, sleeping.
You'll
But
get there.
yeah, all it takes is 10 more years of practice.
No, 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 no. It just takes a little bit of meditation to get the general idea.
Right. Well, I got another year
Okay, we'll
to
be
test
back
that
this
out.
year, and so will you.
Yeah.
I guess I am.
Yep. Yep.
I thought I had a choice in life, but I guess not.
I can tell you from personal experience, you don't say no to Lisa Marie.
Y'all can be dinosaurs and watch him become an American citizen all in one
And see us get a
swoop.
1,000 mile jacket.
And our 1,000 mile jacket.
Yeah. There's a lot going on this year.
And eat cake.
And eat cake,
Yes.
but you won't have it if you eat it.
Okay, that's true.
Yeah.
We can look at it.
But yeah, last year I had to listen to her talk for 3 days about this cake at the award ceremony.
I had no idea if they were going to have it, but I convinced everyone on the track that there was going to be cake.
At the finish or at New Year's?
No, at
No,
the
at the
finish.
finish, at the award ceremony.
Yeah, because we weren't sure if they were going to have it. And so somebody comes over and says, "You got to quit doing that." And it
That was all she talked about for 3 days.
was cake.
Was there cake?
Yes, there
Yes,
was.
cake
It's a
with
good
China.
point.
icing.
I vaguely remember that. I just remember the monster sub sandwiches.
Yeah,
Yeah,
but
yeah,
it was the cake. I don't know why I had to focus on something. It was the cake for me.
yeah,
Well, I guess after 6 days you can do a little sugar.
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
I don't think it's going to hurt our weight.
So,
Well, thank you so much for this. We
yep.
will be back with you and talk about something completely different.